The Interlopers by.Saki. In the forest, a mix grows somewhere on the eastern space of the Carpathians. A man stood one winter night watching and listening as though he waited for some beast of the earth to come within the range of his vision, and waited of his rifle. But the game, for whose presence he kept so keen an outlook, was not that figured in the sportsman's calendar as rifle unprepared for the chase. Away from graduates, part round the dark forest in quest of the human enemy. The first round of graduates, while wide extended at well stocked with game. The now streets of precipitous woodland. The rayon is outskirted, was not remarkable for the game it harbored, or the shooting it afforded, but it was the most justly counted of all its unauthorized possessions. A famous lawsuit, in the days of his grandfather, had wrested it from the illegal possessions of a neighboring family of paid landowners. The dispossessed party had never acquiesced in the judgment of the courts, and a long series of poaching affairs and several scandals had embittered the relationships between the families for 3 generations. The neighborhood had grown into a personal one since Ulrich had come to be a head of his family. If there was a man in the world whom he detested and wished to it was Gao's name, the inheritor of the color, and the tireless game snatcher and raider of disputed border forest. The feud might, perhaps, have died down or been compromised if the personal ill will of the 2 men had not stood in the way. As boys they had thirsted for one another's blood. As men, each prayed that misfortune might fall on the other. And this wind-sketched winter night, we had banded together his footsteps towards the dark forest, not to inquest of foul-hooded quarry, but to keep a lookout for the burrowing thieves who he suspected of peeing afoot from across the land boundary. The roebuck, which usually kept in the sheltered hole during a storm wind, were running right during things tonight, and there was movement and unrest among the creatures that were wont to switch through the dark hours. Assuredly, there was disturbing element in the forest, and Ulrich could guess quarter from whence it came. He strayed away by himself from the watchers, whom he had placed in ambush on the crest of the hill, and wandered far down the steep slopes amid the wild tangles of undergrowth, peering through the tree trunks, and whistling through the whistling, and scurrying on the wind, and the restless beating of the branches for sight and sound of the marvellous. If only on this wild night, in this dark round spot, he might come across Gael's name man to man, with none to witness. That was the wish that was uppermost in his thoughts, and as he steps round the trunk of the huge beech, he comes face to face with the man he sought. The 2 enemies stood glaring at one another for a long silent moment. Each had a rifle in his hand. Each had hate in his head and murder uppermost in his mind. The chance had come to give food to prey the passions of the lifetime. But a man, who has been brought up, and the code of the restoration civilizations cannot easily nerve himself to shoot down his neighbor in cold blood and without words spoken, except for an offense against his health and honor. And before the moment of hesitation had given way to action, a deed of nature's own violence overwhelmed them both. A fierce shriek of the storm had been answered by a splitting crash over their heads, and ere they could leap aside, a mass of fiery beastry had thundered down on them. Owe from graduates found himself stretched on the ground, one arm beneath him and the other held almost as helplessly in a tight tangle of forked branches, while both legs were pinned beneath the fallen mass. His heavy shooting boots had saved his feet from being crushed to pieces, but if his fractures were not as serious as they might have been, at least it was evident that he could not move from his present position till someone came to release him. The descending drag had thrust the skin on his face, and he had to wring away some drops of blood from his eyelashes before he could take in general view of the disaster. At his side, so near that under ordinary circumstances he could almost have touched him, where Gil's name arrived unstaggering but obviously as helplessly pinioned down as himself. Around them there three through wreckage of splintered branch and broken twigs. Relief and being alive and expectations at his captive pride brought a strange medley of pious sting of firings and sharps, causing to reach his lips. Georg, who was nearly blinded with the blood which trickled across his eyes, stopped his story going for a moment to listen, and then gave a short, snarly laugh. So you were not killed, as you ought to be, but you were killed anyway. He cried crowd-first, who were just. Reform graduates said his solemn forest. There's real justice for you. And he laughed again, mockingly and savagely. I came in my own first round. Retire, Ulrich. Well, my man come to release as you will wish. Perhaps that you were better bright than killed poaching on neighbor's land. Shame on you. Gale was silent for a moment. Then he answered quietly, Are you sure that your men will find much to release? I have men too. And worse tonight, close behind me, and they will be here first and to the releasing. When they drag me out from under these damn branches, it will need much confidence on their part to load this mess of twilight over on the top of you. Your men will find you dead and a fallen tree. For one's sake, I shall send my condolences to your family. It is a useful hint, said Ulrich fiercely. My men had orders to follow in 10 minutes' time, 7 of which must have gone by already. And when they get me out, I will remember the hint. Orias, you will have met your death poaching on my lands, I don't think I can decently send any message or condolences to your family. Good. Snails girls, good. We fight this court out to the death. You and I on our posters, with no cost, interlopers to come between us. Death and domination to you, reform graduates. The sense to you, girl's name. For a sweet game snatcher. Bossman spoke with the bitterness of possible defeat before them, for each knew that it might be long before his men would seek him out or find him. It was bare matter of chance which party or alive was on the scene. Boss had now given up the useful struggle to free themselves from the mass of wood that held them down. Always limited his underbrush to an effort to bring his one partially free arm near enough to his overcoat pocket to draw out his wine flask. Even when he had accomplished that operation, it was long before he could manage the unscrewing of the stopper or get any the racket down his throat. But what I have said drove it swimmed. It was a open winter, and little snow had fallen as yet. Had the captain suffered less from the cold than might have been the case at the season of the year. Nevertheless, the wine was warming and reviving to the wounded man, and he walked across with something like a throb of pity to where his enemy lay, just keeping the ground on pain and weariness from causing his ribs. Could you reach this flask if I threw it over to you? Asked Ulrich suddenly. There's good wine in it, and one may as well be as comfortable as one can. Let that drink, even if tonight one of us twice. No, I can scarcely see anything. There is so much blood caked round my eyes. There you go. In any case, I don't drink wine with an enemy. Ulrich was silent for a few minutes, and lay listening to the waves catching of the wind. An idea was slowly forming and growing in his brain. An idea that gained strength every time that he looked across at the man who was fighting so grimly against pain and exhaustion. In the pain and wrangle that Ulrich himself was feeling, the old fire's hatred seems to be dying down. Neighbor, he says presently, do as you please if your men come first. It's a fair compact. But as for me, I've changed my mind. If my men are the first to come, you shall be the first to be helped, as those you were my guest. We have quarreled like devils, our rave over the stupid strips of forest, where the trees can't even stand upright in the breath of wind. Right here tonight singing, I began to think we've been rather fools. There are better things in life than getting the better of the boundary dispute. Neighbor, if you will help me to base the old choir, I will ask you to be my friend. Georg's name was silent for so long that Ulrich thought perhaps he had faded with the pain of his injuries. Then he spoke slowly and he injects. Has how risen, store and gather. If we lot in the market, square together. No living can remember seeing its name and the foreign graduates talking to one another in friendship. And what peace there would be among the foster folk if we ended our feud tonight. And if we choose to make peace among our people, there is none other to interfere. No interlopers from outside. You can keep the Sylvester night beneath my roof, and I will come and finish on some high day at your castle. I will now fire a shot on your land. Say why you invited me as a guest, and you should come and shoot with me down in my meshes where the waterfall were. In all the countryside, there are none that could hinder. If we will to make peace, I know so to have wanted to do it, then hate you all my life. But I think I have changed my mind about things too. This was half hour, and you from me, your wife ask, away from graduates. I will be your friend. For a space, but men were silent, turning over in their mind the wonderful chance that this dramatic reconciliation ought to bring about. In the cold, gloomy forest, with the wind tearing in fearful gutters through the naked branches and whistling round the tree trunks, they lay and waited for the help that would now bring release and succor to both parties. At each play a private prayer, the headsman might be the first to arrive, so that he might the first show an appetition to the enemy that had become a friend. Presently, as wind dropped for a moment, we broke silence. Rush of help, he said. In these rare voices may carry and read away. They won't carry for through the trees and on the grass, said Georg. But we can try together then. The two raised their voices and prolonged hunting call. Together again, said Ulrich a few minutes later, after listening and waiting for answering Harold. I heard nothing but the precious wind, said Georg halfway. There was silence again for some minutes, and then Ulrich gave a joyful cry. I could see figures coming through the wood. They were following the way I count down the hillside. Bushmen raised their voices in as loud a shout as they could muster. They hear us. They stopped. Now they see us. They're running down the hill towards us, cried Ulrich. How many of them are there? Asked Georg. I can't see distinctly, said Ulrich. 9 or 10. Then they are yours. Say, girl. I have only 7 out with me. They're making all the speed they can. Brave lads, said Ulrich gladly. They your men? Asked Georg. They your men? He repeated impatiently, as Ulrich did not answer. No, said Ulrich with a laugh. The idiotic chatting laugh of a man oozing with hideous fear. Who are they? Asked Georg quickly, striking his eye to see what the other would gladly not have seen. Wolves,